The film begins with a man named Duffy who decides to enter a bar. Inside, he notices a group of tough guys playing poker, and despite not having any money, he decides to join them. To get into the game, Duffy pawns his watch. After a few rounds, Duffy wins, which angers the leader of the group, and a fight breaks out. During the brawl, Duffy easily defeats them, catching the attention of a man named Max, who had recently been released from prison. Later, Duffy stays at a nearby motel, as he doesn't have a permanent home and tends to move around frequently. It's revealed that Duffy was once a major in the Special Forces and served as a Marine. 7 years prior, he had lost many comrades in Afghanistan, leaving only him and his friend POA as survivors. The next morning, Max approaches Duffy, having recognized him from the bar fight. Initially hesitant to talk, Duffy eventually listens as Max insists he has something worth sharing, even offering to buy him breakfast. Intrigued, Duffy agrees to go with Max, who explains that he saw Duffy's impressive martial arts skills and proposes that they team up to make money from Duffy's fighting abilities. Duffy is skeptical at first, but Max promises that he's being truthful and offers to prove it. Soon after, Max takes Duffy to a location where a street fight is being organized by a man named Donald. Donald is responsible for matching fighters. After the first fight, Donald challenges anyone to take on his champion, a large and intimidating fighter. Knowing that Duffy is there for a fight, Donald encourages him to step up, but Duffy refuses once he learns that Max is the one arranging the fight. When Duffy tries to leave, the crowd begins mocking him, calling him a coward, which pushes Duffy to accept the challenge. In a matter of seconds, Duffy defeats Donald's champion with ease. Afterward, Max collects some money from Donald, but they quickly split up when they hear police sirens. As they leave, Max asks Duffy if he has a place to stay, and when Duffy says he doesn't, Max offers to let him stay at his sister's house. Max also shares part of the money he earned with Duffy. When they arrive at Max's sister Rachel's house, they witness her throwing out her boyfriend. A fight ensues between Duffy and Rachel's boyfriend, and it is revealed that Rachel is a widow with a child. The next day, Max meets with Parker, a big-time mafia boss, to whom Max owes a substantial amount of money. Parker warns Max that if he doesn't pay back the debt within a week, the amount will continue to grow. In response, Max plans to settle his debt by arranging another fight, confident now that he has found a skilled fighter in Duffy. Parker is pleased with the arrangement, as he has 2 strong, undefeated fighters. Meanwhile, Duffy is seen cleaning Rachel's house. When Rachel and her daughter return, they are both impressed with Duffy's politeness and good manners. They thank Duffy for cleaning the house. That evening, after Duffy, Rachel, and her daughter finished dinner, Max returned home looking pleased, as Duffy seemed to be settling in well at Rachel's place. Afterward, Max asked Rachel and her daughter to give him and Duffy a moment to speak privately. During their conversation, Max confessed to Duffy that he owed a large sum of money to a mafia boss and couldn't pay it off in small installments. Desperate, Max asked Duffy to fight again to help settle the debt and earn some money. Feeling sympathy for Max's situation, Duffy agreed to help. The scene shifts to Parker interrogating a man named Riggs, who turns out to be Rachel's boyfriend, the one she had kicked out of her house, and the same man Duffy had fought. It's revealed that Riggs is one of Parker's henchmen and had stolen all the money from their group. Meanwhile, a corrupt police chief named Lynx arrives. She begins questioning Riggs about the stolen money, and Riggs admits that he hid all the money in his girlfriend's house. Upon hearing this, Lynx wastes no time and kills Riggs. Afterward, Lynx asks Parker to find out who Riggs' girlfriend is. The next night, Max and Duffy head to the fighting arena to compete. When they arrive, a women's fight is taking place, and Lynx is in the audience watching. After the first match, it's Duffy's turn to fight against one of Parker's men. Donald, the match leader, warns the crowd that Duffy is not someone to underestimate. As the fight begins, Duffy quickly and effortlessly defeats his opponent within seconds. As Duffy and Max prepare to leave, Parker stops them, insisting that Duffy fight again, this time against his right-hand man, Ford. Knowing how dangerous Ford is, Max initially refuses, pointing out that their debt has already been paid. But Parker offers to triple the payment if Duffy can defeat Ford. Hearing this, Duffy agrees to fight, but he demands 5 times the amount if he wins. Parker agrees without hesitation. Shortly after, the match between Duffy and Ford begins. At first, Duffy struggles, as Ford is an incredibly tough fighter who has never been defeated. However, Duffy recalls his past experiences in Afghanistan, which fuels his aggression and determination. In the end, Duffy overpowers Ford and wins the fight, nearly taking Ford down completely. Back at home, Duffy and Max are overjoyed, as they now have a significant amount of money. Max thanks God for bringing Duffy into his life, knowing that without Duffy's help, he would have remained in debt and likely been killed by Parker. The next day, Parker contacts Lynx to inform her that he has discovered where Riggs' girlfriend lives. Soon after, Lynx and her team go to Rachel's house, pretending to be searching for Riggs. Rachel tells them that she and Riggs had been separated for a long time, and that she doesn't know where he is. However, the corrupt police insisted on searching Rachel's house, claiming they were looking for the money Riggs had stolen. After a thorough search, they came up empty-handed. Lynx then issued a warning to Rachel, giving her 1 week to find the stolen money or face serious consequences for both her and her daughter. Later that evening, Max and Duffy returned home, only to find out that Rachel's house had been raided earlier in the day by the corrupt police. Rachel explained that they had been searching for money hidden by Riggs, but she had no knowledge of it. Max quickly realized that these corrupt officers were likely working for Parker. He then advised Rachel and her daughter to stay indoors, while he and Duffy headed to Parker's headquarters to confront him. Upon confronting Parker, Max and Duffy accused him of harassing Max's sister, but Parker denied any involvement. He claimed that the situation was beyond his control, as it was the work of a more powerful group. Parker admitted that he didn't dare oppose them. He then revealed that Riggs had confessed to hiding the stolen money at Rachel's house, putting her and her daughter in grave danger. Parker warned that if the money wasn't returned, the corrupt police would likely kill them. Feeling cornered, Parker suggested that Max take responsibility for the debt instead. Max and Duffy decided to leave Parker's headquarters, but as they stepped outside, they unexpectedly encountered Lynx and her deputy in a car. Max felt overwhelmed, unsure of how he could possibly repay Riggs' debt. He knew that if he didn't, Rachel and her daughter would be in serious danger. Duffy reassured Max, telling him that he was willing to fight again to save Rachel and her daughter. A few hours later, Duffy stood outside Rachel's house, lost in thought. Rachel approached him, asking why he seemed to never sleep. Duffy explained that whenever he closed his eyes, memories of his fallen comrades from the military haunted him. Most of them had died, and only he and one other, named Boo, had survived. Meanwhile, Max was meeting with Donald to arrange a big fight for Duffy, hoping to earn enough money to settle Riggs' debt and ensure that Rachel would no longer be harassed by the corrupt police. Donald agreed to help, but only if he received a 30% cut of the earnings. The next morning, Donald met with Parker to inform him about Max's request for a major fight. Donald also tried to persuade Parker by presenting it as an opportunity for revenge after Duffy's previous victory. Parker agreed, and they began planning for a big fight that evening. As night fell, Max brought Duffy to the fight venue, where wealthy spectators had gathered to place bets on their chosen champions. Parker and Lynx were behind the event, confident that Duffy would lose this time. Lynx even told Parker that if Duffy somehow won, Parker would be responsible for covering the financial losses. Parker, however, refused, threatening to expose evidence of Lynx's criminal activities. If the evidence were to be revealed, it would spell serious trouble for Lynx and her corrupt team. Meanwhile, Rachel was taking out the trash when she noticed a hole near the bin. Inside, she discovered a bag of money hidden by Riggs. At that moment, Rachel learned that her daughter had found and hidden the money because she was fed up with Riggs being rude to her mother. Her daughter apologized for keeping it a secret. Back to Duffy, Donald informed him that his next opponent was a tough police officer. Donald had placed a $5 million bet on Duffy, urging him to win. When the fight began, Duffy quickly defeated the officer, but they later discovered that the officer had already lost a fight earlier that day. Chaos broke out, and Duffy and Donald decided to flee. On their way out, Max called Rachel, telling her to pack up and leave the city quickly with her daughter. Despite Rachel revealing that she had found the money the police were searching for, Max insisted that they leave immediately. Soon after, Max and Duffy rushed home and instructed Rachel and her daughter to get into the car, but they were suddenly ambushed by the corrupt police. During the attack, Rachel's daughter was shot. Max immediately called for an ambulance, and once Rachel and her daughter were taken to the hospital, Duffy told Max they needed to solve the problem once and for all. He then suggested they meet with his old friend for help. Meanwhile, as Donald attempted to flee with the betting money, he was shot by someone, a representative sent by Lynx to take the money deliberately. On the other hand, Max and Duffy met with Boa, who had served alongside Duffy in the military. Duffy explained that they needed weapons to fight back against the corrupt police that night. Boa assured them he had the necessary weapons in his car and reminded Max that Duffy had saved his life on the battlefield. He then took them to his car, which was loaded with weapons. Although Boa offered to join them, Duffy hesitated, not wanting to put him in danger. But Boa insisted, mentioning the debt he owed Duffy. Soon after, Duffy, Max, and Boa headed to Parker's headquarters to confront the corrupt police. Parker warned them to stay alert, as the corrupt officers were targeting him as well. Suddenly, the police surrounded the area, and a battle broke out. Boa, Max, and Duffy managed to defeat Lynx's men. At one point, Parker cornered Lynx, but she killed him without hesitation. Lynx then cornered Max and demanded that Duffy surrender, threatening to kill Max if he didn't comply. Hearing this, Duffy surrendered, but Max managed to shoot Lynx before anyone noticed. After the chaos ended, Duffy realized that Boa had been fatally wounded. He tried to comfort him, but Boa passed away. The next day, Max visited the hospital where Rachel's daughter had regained consciousness and was cleared to go home. Once back home, Rachel found a letter from Duffy. In the letter, he thanked her for allowing him to stay at her house and mentioned the money found in the trash, advising Rachel to use it wisely. Duffy promised to return once everything had settled and marry her. The film ends with the moral lesson: always check your trash bins. You might just find the solution to your problems and possibly even a future spouse.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.